This is a set of slides that I've been giving to various governmental groups and environmental groups over the years. So the title is The Economic and Environmental Impact of Outdoor Lighting, as well as what we can do about it. I like to offer solutions, not just highlighting problems. This is my vitae right here. I did take the lighting design course, even though I do not conduct it professionally, mostly because I just wanted to know, what we could do and what we don't have to do. What people would say, oh no, we really can't do that. And, I could show them that there is a way to, abate the light pollution. Everyone wants to know how I got involved, and it's because my neighbor's lights were coming into my house. And I investigated my local code, as many local codes are written, to say that light crossing property lines was prohibited, but it wasn't clear enough. So my code enforcement officer told me I shouldn't have built a glass house. And so I therefore worked with my town to refine the law so that it would be more clear and more enforceable. And I worked with this organization, the International Dark Sky Association. It's a nonprofit. They're centered down in Tucson. They initiated the first dark sky laws because they're ringed with observatories. They're ringed with mountains with observatories on top. And the astronomers got together and spoke to the city fathers, and they instituted the first dark sky laws. This is now a very large international group, almost in every single country, that works on dealing with light pollution. And this is what the SkyGo looks like, and it obscures the stars when light is upwardly directed and when it's excessive on the ground and it bounces up in and hits particulate and moisture. And we refer to that as the sky glow. So this is what it looks, this is a comparison of a blackout before and after, with stars and without stars. So only a third of the people in our country can see the Milky Way because of light pollution. And we can easily lose this natural resource. This is what the comet looked like in 2002 in the city and out here in the country. This is a graphic description of what it's like when there's a light fixture that's emitting light upward and out instead of down to the ground. We can generally reduce the amount of energy by about a third. And this is a top mounted, aiming straight out light fixture, very typical. And so what our recommendation is on the right-hand side, to utilize light fixtures that direct the light down towards the target on the ground. And we only use the term light pollution for lighting that is misdirected, unshielded, excessive, or unnecessary. Not lighting, light pollution is not lighting that's serving a useful purpose. You can see it, it's glare, it's sky glow, and we have the resulting air pollution from the generation of the electricity. And our stars are obscured by the sky glow. Our visibility is decreased due to glare. That's when the light source is visible and it reduces your ability to see at night. Light trespass is when light is crossing the property lines and we have wasted electrical energy. There are ecological disturbances, which I will outline. And there's more and more evidence coming forward about how our human health is affected. Not to mention that we lose our connection to the stars in the night sky. So we're all very familiar with this map, but it shows the whole world at night. And as you know, the world is not all dark at the same time. They have been able to actually measure the amount of light that's hitting the satellites to see how much light is going up. So here's a rendering of the day and night cycle. And we have evolved, as all natural creatures, flora and fauna, in a day-night cycle. So we refer to using dark sky lighting. And this is going to provide plenty of light per the professional recommendations to see well. It reduces glare so you can have better night vision, conserves energy, protects human health, enhances the nocturnal environment, which is quite beautiful. We just have to give it a chance. And it allows for a clear view of the night sky. We use shielded fixtures. Those are the ones that are that cover the bulb so that it directs the light downward. We use light levels that are recommended by the professionals, and we do not exceed them. We use lighting when it's needed for pedestrian safety, property identification, and we mount the light fixture at the correct height in relation to the property line, because if it's too close to the property line, you're going to have light trespass if it's a tall light fixture. You can have taller light fixtures further in on the property. And lately, we've been talking more and more about reducing the blue light waves in a light source, because LEDs have a tremendous amount of blue light in them. And we're still burning coal to produce electricity. And a quarter ton of coal is burned to produce 100 watts of incandescent light bulb if it's burning dusk to dawn for a year. And this is the amount of night lighting that's being wasted. We're estimating, the International Dark Sky Association estimates that about 30% of our night lighting is wasted. And this figure is an old figure, so I'm sure it's greater than this. $4.5 billion a year. Consuming electricity that burns tons of coal, barrels of oil. And this increases our taxes and causes higher consumer product prices. Roadway lighting is the greatest source of light pollution at this point because there's so much of it, and it's a very high energy light source. And you can see the difference between the unshielded and the shielded. And more and more communities are starting to use the shielded roadway lights. This is the one on the top is the old-fashioned drop lens, and it's being replaced in towns all over the East End and New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, with the flat lens, and it produces the light straight to the ground, reduces energy. And this is the air pollution that we end up with: carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitric oxide. And also, you know, when you're burning coal, it's the plants that burn the coal are west of us, and we get the westerly winds, and that's dropped on us and into our land, our water, and the ocean. And we talk about glare. This has to do with adaptation. You know, when you leave a movie theater, when we used to go to the movies, you can't see as well. And that's because you've adjusted to the dark, and your eyes have an elasticity to them. You know, they open and close, the retina. And as we get older, there's less ability to contract and open. So on older eyes, like mine, we have more difficulty at night because of the adaptation. This is a perfect example of glare. Over here, is my arrow working? This is actually a railroad sign over on the left-hand side. We worked with the Long Island Power Authority, and they used to have, let's see if I can show you, this type of fixture up on the utility pole. And here's an example of it on the road. And we convinced them to instead utilize the shielded fixture, which the light goes down instead of right in your face and across property lines. So that was a initiative by Richie Kessel. And here's the light pattern of that fixture. It's called a mongoose. Here we have a light trespass situation. The house across the street is being completely lit up. And here's a rendering from a brochure. We produced a handout in East Hampton, which was very useful, and it was put into everybody's tax bill. It shows some of the reasons for addressing your outdoor lighting. Now, human health is probably the best reason that we are able to initiate changes, because there's studies that have been done about how light at night, and they call it LAN, L-A-N, has been shown to, because our bodies need sleep and they need dark to go through certain functions. And they've established a link between light at night and higher incidence of breast and prostate cancer. There's also the impact on flora and fauna. And back in 2002, the very first study was put together by Catherine Rich and Travis Longcore. And every single aspect that they studied. Now, there's a bias towards studying nature during the day because you can see better. So there were not that many studies done at night. They're doing more now. This was their poster. They dealt with the visible stars, ecological pollution, sky glow, birds being affected. But every single creature that they studied was negatively affected by night lighting. Mammals, birds, reptiles, fish, invertebrates, plants. And they concluded that all of the things we do for nature preservation are necessary, but they might not be sufficient if we don't address this, meaning night lighting. And alerts readers to common diurnal bias of most researchers and reminds readers that most animals are nocturnal. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but I will point out that these are the studies: bats, sea turtles, frogs, salamanders, long-nosed snake, moths, fish, songbirds. There's been extensive studies about songbirds and impact of night lighting. Zooplankton, trees, puffins and petrels. So they are all affected by night lighting. What I read. You may have read about the sea turtles down in Florida. They hatch in the sand and they will go towards the water unless there's light from adjacent roadways or condos or apartment houses. So they actually have a law, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife enforces it, so that they protect these turtles, and they require shielded lighting near the beaches. This is a poster from National Bird Migration Day. You can see it's at night. These are stars. Birds are very negatively affected by night lighting. It's estimated that hundreds of millions of songbirds die every year during migration. They get thrown off course by bright, upwardly directed night lighting. And they die in collisions with lit structures or from exhaustion when circling them. If they're in the fog, they will get disoriented and they will circle communication towers to exhaustion and die. There's a program up in Toronto, it's called the Fatal Light Awareness Program. And a group of the volunteers go around the buildings and pick up the birds at night that have crashed into the buildings. So what they've done is they've voluntarily put together, they turn off their lights during migrations. And even in New York City, the Audubon Society is working with the skyscrapers so that they turn their wall washing lights off during migration, because New York City and our area are in migration routes. So fireflies can't communicate with each other in the presence of lights. Trees will hold on to their leaves longer. You can see the pattern of light from this street light. They hold on to their leaves longer and they experience dieback because they need to go into dormancy. And they don't know it's winter when the lights are illuminating their leaves. Here's a poor lighting design for trees. This is better. And also we address sign lighting. It's much better to have the fixture mounted on the top rather than on the bottom. Here's an example of a change that was made for a hotel down here on the South Fork. They installed the light on top. They also have flagpole lights from above so that they don't have to be lit from below. We just have to remember, you know, electric lighting is sort of a new invention. And we love it because we're allowed to get around and do what we want. But we have to take into consideration that it really does negatively affect flora, fauna, and our human health, because we've evolved in a dark and light environment. And, you know, the old-fashioned lights were what they refer to as 200 lumens, which is on a light bulb package. The 100-watt incandescent, you know, which we use, 1800 lumens. But the very high intensity discharge, like street lights, they can, and, you know, commercial lighting can be this bright. And you can see, you know, watts is what the electricity that goes in, but the lumen is the amount of light that goes out. So we need to pay attention to the lumens. But we also need to pay attention to the type of bulb that we're getting, since, you know, in our lifetime, they've been producing compact fluorescent and LEDs. So you can see daylight has equal measures, like the prism that we used in elementary school has equal measure of all colors. But light bulbs have different wavelengths, different quantity of wavelengths. And blue light is problematic for several reasons. For one, blue light affects the health of our eyeballs. They're starting to think that the LEDs, which are blue, they're not white, and we need to address the color of the LED lights. And they contribute to macular degeneration. And blue light, you know what it feels like when you pass headlights that are quite blue. You know, you have much more difficulty adapting because it tightens up your retina. Also, higher blue light waves will impact sky glow because blue light waves are shorter and they scatter more in the atmosphere. So more reason to use lower, what they call Kelvin. So you want it when you go to the store and you're buying light bulbs, LEDs, and compact fluorescent, you want to look for the packages that say 2700 Kelvin. Not just warm white, but 2700. And they're quite available. And my whole point is that we can make these changes and it's cost effective. You change the fixtures, you change the bulbs, you change the location, you add timers or sensors, and this will save money and pay for itself. It's called a conversion. This is a set of diagrams. I believe that Southold town passes these out to applicants. And you can see the different types. We're going basically from one side over to the other side of unshielded to shielded fixtures. And on the website for the International Dark Sky Association, you can pick a type of lighting situation, and they have a number of fixtures that go through an approval process to make sure that they are they meet the guidelines. And one of our problems is we keep picking old time fixtures, but they were intended for candles and very low light output fixtures. So, but we picked it, we're still using the same fixtures. But some of the manufacturers are like this one, Seagull Lighting. They're starting to recess the bulb up in the cap so that all the light is projected down. And, you know, a lot of our, you know, so-called historic fixtures, we pick them during the day, you know, because we like the way they look, but then we don't think about what happens when we turn them on at night. They end up with quite a bit of glare. And the way that the light bulbs can project that light down is there's all these little facets in the fixture. which direct the light in various places. And here's some so-called historic looking fixtures that are fully shielded. All the light goes down. On the right-hand side is a shielded post top. On the left is one that's not shielded. These are photographs I took when I was in Rome. This is on the Via Appia, and they're using shielded fixtures. Also in front of Buckingham Palace, all those historic fixtures, they are fully shielded. And the manufacturers are starting to get on the bandwagon. They're producing what they refer to as good neighbor lighting. And here's one of their brochures from RAB. We also are recommending that the towers that are going in, like windmills and communication towers, use this system that will illuminate when there's a transponder from an airplane, so they don't need to be left on all the time. And there's plenty of professional guidelines that we can refer to. The Illuminating Engineer Society, the LEED U.S. Green Building Council, and the International Dark Sky Association all have recommendations for reviewing lighting. And there's quite a few county, state, and national laws. I'm working on one right now for Sag Harbor. Southampton has a very good outdoor lighting law. Southold has a very good one, but it does need to be updated. And a lot of people use lighting with the mistaken belief that it prevents crime. But the majority of crimes occur during the day. I mean, the vast majority of crimes, and in lit environments. The Department of Justice reported that there's a strong indication that increased lighting only decreases the fear of crime. So we recommend that people consider the fact that, there's really a feeling of security is not the same as real security. What would help at night is, if you're not there, putting on 2 independently timed indoor lights. Because if you leave all the lights on the outside, your neighbors would be less inclined to, alert the police, if they saw someone walking around with a flashlight. And they did ask criminals, what deterred you? Dog, alarm system, someone at home, that was big. And security lighting was not even on their charts. So if any decision is taken to increase lighting, it needs to be taken on the best possible evidence. There are campuses that started turning off their lights out in California, and they needed to save energy during the energy crisis. But they also found out that they were saving money because there was less vandalism, less break-in, less graffiti, and loitering. I mean, they really saved a tremendous amount of money. And this is in Texas and everywhere. So we can have prisons with good lighting. It's hard to tell, but this is a fully shielded prison lighting. And ATM lighting has a bad rap because it's poor, it's not well done, and people are under the impression that it needs to be like that. It doesn't. There is a New York State law about ATM lighting, but you do not have to have unshielded lighting to meet that law. And here's a gas station where it has these drop lens. There's a lot of glare, 6,400 watts. And here's a retrofit. About half as many watts are needed, and it still meets exactly the recommendations. And it's easier to see. This is a tremendous amount of glare, and your adaptation is all out of whack. And then this one here, they did a study where they actually, more people pulled in to the gas stations that had the shielded lighting. And strangely, they also managed to buy more gas. Here we have what they call a barn blaster. There's quite a few of these around. And they invented a bulb so that all the light could go down. So the causes are the unshielded and excessive light fixtures that emit the light off the target, Light levels that exceed recommendations, because if it bounces and bounces up into the night sky, it's still going to produce light, it's still going to produce sky glow. Unnecessary or redundant lighting, misaimed fixtures, fixtures incorrectly located, positioned at the wrong height, too close to the property line, and very importantly, the sensors, dimming, and shutoffs. They need to match the use of those lights. So we go about this through education, which we're doing now, and citing examples of good lighting and lighting that needs to be changed, setting up policies and guidelines, which are already available, in various towns, regulations and enforcement. It's a carrot and stick approach. And when it comes to lighting regulations, I would say most towns have something on the books, but it needs to have definitions and accurate and technically accurate, and enforceability are very important. Otherwise, it gives people the impression, as I had, that my law was addressing my situation, but it didn't. Municipal, commercial, and residential lighting needs to be fully shielded, all new. That's easy. And when there's a site plan being proposed, it needs to include a lighting plan that has what they call a cut sheet. It shows the fixture type, and it shows a grid indicating the foot candle, how much light is hitting the ground. And, showing also the height and the lumen level, bulb type, and distance to the property line for the fixtures. I mean, this is the same thing you would get when someone submitted a landscape plan. You'd need to show what types of plants and how high they grow and how close they are, and et cetera. And comprehensive regulations would be where you set municipal policies and you fund yearly retrofits. Again, this pays for itself, especially if you're instituting lighting controls. Legislation for new residential, commercial, educational campaign is key, because the public will buy into this. I hardly ever hear of any resistance, except when people don't quite understand, the concepts and the reasons for doing it. And it's important to address the pre-existing non-conforming, because, light, trespass, and glare, provide, you need to have private property rights. And glare is a problem. If you've got glare from a house intruding onto a street, it could be dangerous for the roadway. We recommend 1-for-1 replacements, bulb replacements to a lower output, bulb type, re-aiming, switching controls, retrofits, motion sensor. And who knows, we could have a great night sky full of stars, which are an inspiration to generations everywhere. But it does require people to accept change. And it has a considerable psychological impact on the human mind. To the fearful, it is threatening, because it means that things may get worse. To the hopeful, it is encouraging, because things may get better. And to the confident, it is inspiring, because the challenge exists to make things better. So these are the two websites. The local one is very simple and uncomplicated, and it has some PDF documents about how to talk to your neighbor, with a bad light, landscape lighting, and a couple other things in there, and also those diagrams that show the good and bad fixtures, that can be downloaded as well. And the International Dark Sky Association, that's a huge website. It's a wonderful organization if you want to join. And also up there on the North Fork, you've got the Custer Institute, and the astronomers are some of the most wonderful and generous and knowledgeable people about teaching you about the value of our night sky. So that's my presentation.